Live from the Business RadioX studio inside Renaissance Bank, the bank that specializes in understanding you. It's time for North Fulton Business Radio.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome to another edition of North Fulton Business Radio. I'm John Ray, and folks, we are broadcasting as usual from inside Renaissance Bank in beautiful Alpharetta. And if you are tired of getting squished like a bug at your mega bank, and if you're at one of these mega banks, you know what I mean by that. Impersonal service, computer-generated voices. You can't find a live person to save your soul because they don't want you to talk to a live person. If you're tired of that and want to change, consider Renaissance Bank. What the clients that I refer to Renaissance tell me is that they are big enough to handle pretty much any need that you can throw at them, but they're small enough to deliver their services in a personal way. That's a magic combination that's hard to find in banking, but you can find it at Renaissance. Go to renaissancebank.com to learn more. Renaissance Bank, understanding you, member FDIC. Now I want to welcome Amina Bakari-Green. Amina is with ABG Legal. Amina, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here. Let's talk about you and your work. How are you serving folks out there?
So I am serving folks by doing estate planning and probate services, getting your wills and trusts, whatever you need for the assets that you have and the family dynamics that you have in order, and then doing the probate side as well. So after you've passed, or then a lot of times dealing with incapacity as well.
Super. So you're obviously an attorney. You talk about your backstory. Why the law? Why did you end up pursuing the law?
So I knew I wanted to be a lawyer since the fourth grade.
Really?
Yeah, really.
Wow,
early on.
You inspired by someone in your family or someone on what's like a television character or so what?
Kind of a mix. So
okay.
First attorney in the family on both sides,
okay.
But just watching a lot of legal movies and TVs with my mom.
Okay.
And so She just encouraged me, you could do that. Mm-hmm. And I just feeling like she believed in me, and that was the path. Was
it because you asked a lot of questions too?
And she could just see me in court taking down the criminals,
right,
and all kinds of stuff like that.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. And so you went to law school, and you came out, and there's all sorts of different law you can practice. Mm-hmm. As many different varieties of law as there are professions out there. So talk about why estate planning. What made you passionate about that work?
So that is where my career has ended up. I've definitely practiced many types of law before that, but I've settled in estate planning and probate, just really seeing how I can help people, and taking the many years of other legal practices and allowing that to translate. So I started as a prosecutor right after law school. I thought I'd be a career prosecutor, but politics had other things in mind. So after about 7.5 years of being a prosecutor in Gwinnett County, I did some civil litigation. And so at that point, I had done pretty much I had practiced in every court available. I started in traffic court as a prosecutor. So I've done speeding tickets up to murder, going up to the DA's office as well, doing civil practice, so magistrate court on the criminal and civil side, juvenile court on the criminal side. And so now I found myself in probate court. So one of the few lawyers that can say I have practiced in every court there is. I speak court.
Yeah. So what is what are your experience as a prosecutor? Talk about how that informs your work as an estate and probate attorney.
So I think starting in traffic court and recorder's court, that's where I was really dealing with the public directly. So most people don't have attorneys. You're coming in with your speeding ticket, maybe a DUI, and you're just trying to figure out, can I get the fine down? Can I avoid points on my license? And so that's where we work with you. We look at your driving history and we say, okay, this doesn't happen often for you. We can work with you here. Take a driving course, things like that. So just really having that one-to-one with people on their bad day, trying to help them get on the same page. We have a similar goal. Let's not see you back here.
Yeah. Cool. That's not really the way it works necessarily, though, the last part you said about not seeing us here. You estate and probate work is there's a lot more continuing work in that than just, hey, I draw up a will and I'm done. I think that's the perception a lot of people have. And so that ongoing work is important, right?
Yeah. I say once you do have an estate plan in place, you probably want to take a look at it every 5 to 10 years, or depending what's going on. As people that you've nominated in your wills pass, we try to have a couple backups nominated as far as who's going to be your executor, power of attorney and things. You have a couple people in place. So if one goes, you have another one or two behind them. But then also if the laws change. So a lot of times people have their wills from the 90s. Which may be okay, but in Georgia, the law changed where you want to have a self-proving affidavit that's been notarized with 2 witnesses that were notarized in front of the notary. So they weren't necessarily doing that back in the 90s. Or I got a lot of wills from New York where they don't have those same requirements. A lot of times what's in your will is still good, but you might want to add that last page, which is going to save you a lot of work on the back end in probate.
So we have a few things in Georgia where we have more requirements than New York. I'm laughing because I think people think it's so much easier to do business in Georgia than it is in New York, but maybe there are a few things that New York makes it easier, right?
In every state is completely different.
Right.
I hear the horror stories. Probably California and Florida are some of the worst.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah, I don't think New York is terrible. Georgia is actually not too bad. It's fairly friendly that you can get in there even without an attorney and get through the process, especially if you've had some basic planning. A lot of times it is, if you don't know just that legalese and how to speak court and know exactly what to say and what the documents need to have in it, that's where you get caught up and you need a little guidance.
Yeah, for sure. Amina Bakari-Green is with us, folks. Amina is a estate probate attorney with her own firm. ABG Legal is the name of her firm. Let's get to some basic terminology because I think this is where folks, I think they hear terms and it's like either it's too much or that doesn't apply to me. An estate.
Yes.
Now that sounds like something like really big and I'm too small to have an estate. Yeah. Address the person that's thinking that.
Yeah, it's not just for rich people. So if you have a bank account, you have an estate. If you have a child, you have an estate. You have things that you need a plan for what's going to happen when you're not the person there to access that bank account, to be able to pay bills that may affect and care for other people. And if you have a house, you have an estate, no matter how much it's worth. These are things that if they were mismanaged or got lost in probate, it would mean the world to you, no matter how much it's worth.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about an estate plan. So you've convinced me I have an estate. So what does it mean to have an estate plan and what goes into that plan?
So what happens after you pass? So typically if someone dies, they have a bank account. They're the only name on that bank account. They're the only people that can access that money. So you can have, say, $10,000 in that bank account. The bank's going to say, I know you're so-and-so's daughter, but I need something from the court to allow you to access this money. And so anytime we're talking about you have to go through the court, you have to go through the probate process, we're talking about time, and then a lot of times money of the court fees, but then unfortunately a lot of times attorney's fees.
Got it. So having that kind of documentation brings up the issue of doing a will. I think everybody knows what a will is, but when should you have a will? So my recommendation is anyone over the age of 18, and like I said, you at least have a bank account, you should have a will at that point. So you can designate who is going to be in charge of your estate, who's going to be the executor. It definitely becomes a bigger issue when you do have a child. Anyone that has minor children should have a will because that's where you get to name a legal guardian
for that child. If both parents have passed, who's going to step in? So a lot of times we have godmothers and godfathers,
Right.
and it's more kind of a religious or spiritual connection. But legally, that really doesn't mean anything unless you've actually designated them in a legal document in the will.
And that person that's the godmother or godfather may not be the person you want to be the legal guardian anyway.
They might just be really good friends,
Right.
and you always see them on the holidays, but
Yeah.
it can be a bigger question of who you actually want to take care of your child if you're gone.
Right. Let's talk about a trust. So that is another word that I think people hear about trust, and they think it's only for the rich.
Yeah. Yeah. There are many different kinds of trusts, and they're really more like tools that can be used to manage your assets. And it can be very helpful for rich people with lots of assets, especially if we're talking you have over $1 million worth of assets that you would be passing down. That's where trusts can help you to avoid what's called the death tax, estate tax. But even if you have a couple $100,000 as your estate that you would be passing down, a living revocable trust helps you to avoid the probate process, where you can designate a trustee that's going to be in charge the moment you become incapacitated or the moment you actually pass. You've already designated a trustee who's going to be in charge of transferring the title of those assets, having access to bank accounts that you put in the trust, and having clear instructions about what you want to happen with those assets. So maybe you have 3 kids, but one of them really shouldn't have their hands on a lot of money that might be coming their way. You can direct your trustee to give them a certain amount or nothing at all.
So I was going to ask you, how do you know if you need a trust? You just mentioned one of those circumstances. If you have a surviving heir that you're concerned about their own situation and so forth, are there some other instances you can think of that I'm sure there are plenty?
Yeah. So a lot of times it could be your kid's best. Some people are just not good with money, maybe have substance abuse issues, and that's where all the money would end up. A lot of times you have special needs kids who can easily be taken advantage of if they don't have their money protected by a trust. And that also brings in eligibility for government benefits and things like that. If you receive SSI, if you inherit a lot of money, that could disqualify you unless you have it going into a trust where it wouldn't count towards those assets.
Yeah, I was going to say that's special needs trust, I think is what you're talking about there. And that's where you've got to be really careful about being able to maximize the benefits that are out there, because you can really trip yourself up.
Yeah, definitely.
And your surviving son, daughter, whoever you might be the guardian for, if they've got special needs.
Yeah, a lot of, and you think, I don't want to leave this person out, or I don't want to leave them with nothing, so I still want to be able to give to them. And you think you're just helping and making sure that they have a little more to get by with, but you have to do it in the proper way so that it's not going to interfere with their benefits.
So, power of attorney. Here's another one.
Yes.
That sounds a little ominous. What's a power of attorney?
So that is your designation of an agent or someone else that is authorized to make decisions just like you would, who could be authorized to access your bank accounts. So I call 3 different kinds of power of attorney. You can have financial power of attorney. So we're talking your bank accounts, your house, your business. You can have a healthcare power of attorney. So the person who doctors will be able to talk to and give information to and help make medical decisions when you may be incapacitated and can't make those decisions for yourself. And then the third one I call court appointed power of attorney is when you don't have the capacity to designate a person, somebody has to step up. The court is going to appoint them and authorize them to make decisions for you. And then they're going to watch and supervise them the whole time. So now that person has to report back to the court. I call that pre-death probate, where they're having to account for every penny that's spent from a conservatorship account and ask the court to be able to sell an asset like your house to be able to pay for other bills or long-term care and things like that. So it's always good to have the planning in place so you can make those designations on your own and keep the court out of it as much as possible.
Yeah, that sounds like good advice. You really want to stay out of court. Really, that's the goal here. It's great to have court speak and have you representing someone that needs that representation so they don't have to worry about court speak, but the whole idea is to stay out of court.
Exactly. Either avoid or minimize probate. That's usually my approach. Sometimes if you have one house, you have a small bank account and say 2 kids that get along, the probate process won't be too bad for you. I can probably just give you a little guidance, those buzzwords. You can fill out all the papers on your own and be done pretty quickly. But when family dynamics are more complicated, when assets are more complicated, that's when we just want to avoid probate altogether. And that it requires the advanced planning to do that.
I've got a side question here. Do you know any families that don't have family dynamics? I mean, that's what I'm just wondering. I thought all families had dynamics.
Unfortunately, it can be the probate process that causes those family dynamics. It can be siblings that got along their whole lives. And now after one parent dies, they see the claws come out and they see the opportunity and things go south. And then unfortunately, a lot of times by the time the second parent dies, there's no communication, there's no trust, and all those things could have been avoided.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. So how do I go about thinking about all these things? We've run through a lot of terms here, and I can putting myself in someone that's listening that's thinking, this sounds pretty complicated and I don't even know where to start.
Yeah.
So let's talk to that person.
Yeah. So that's where a lot of people get stuck. And estate planning is always on the list. It's, I do need to do that. And I think the success stories that I see and what makes me feel good is when people do finally come and they say, that wasn't that bad. That was actually quick and easy. If you go to someone who is experienced and knows and understands the goal, we're able to streamline the questions. We're able to streamline the information you need to provide. I don't need necessarily a copy of all your bank accounts. I don't need your social security number. I don't need to know your mother's maiden name. You don't have to upend your life and go through all the documents you never look at. We just need basic information of what you have and what you want to do with it. So for a lot of people, making those decisions can be the hard part of, I've never really thought about it. But if I have to think about it, might need to take a little time. So it's good to have that time to take your time making those important decisions of what will happen afterwards.
Yeah. So let's talk in those instances where somebody is really late to addressing this. And I hate to say it, but there are people that are getting to a point where they've got memory issues and so forth. How do you deal with that kind of situation? Because that can be pretty ticklish, I would think, to say the least.
Yeah, and it can definitely be a difficult time in the loved ones' lives to see people diminish. And that is a big part of what the probate court does. So again, that kind of pre-death probate. So when you're incapacitated, Alzheimer's and dementia and things are setting in that oftentimes are not going to get better, only going to get worse. That's when you have to have someone step in, become your legal guardian to make those healthcare decisions, become a conservative to protect your money and assets. I do see a lot of cases of kind of that elder abuse, people being taken advantage of, that they have those assets, they're collecting their retirement, and opportunists come in and see an opportunity to snag that credit card and run it up. You got to have someone who cares and loves you to be able to step in and say, no, I'm watching, I see what's going on, and I can prevent that. So,
yeah, and that is one of those areas where if that's not an incentive to do something early, I don't know what is, because what you just said is I may be perfectly fine in the morning, but by the afternoon, I've got memory issues, right? And so something needs to be done, but I'm still at the mercy of the court. I'm still not, even in the morning when I'm clear-headed, I cannot make that decision, and the court will make it for me in that circumstance. If that's not incentive enough to pick up the phone and call Amina, I'm not sure what is, right?
Yeah. Estate planning is definitely, it's to be done now before it's too late. Because it's too late to make a plan if you don't know what you have or really who you are and who your kids are anymore. It's too late at that point. And it doesn't have to be old age and dementia. You have a stroke in your 30s, 40s. Things can happen at any time. That's why I say you really need these documents in place as soon as you're 18. You're an adult. You may still be really close with your parents and they might come to the doctor's appointments with you still, but you're an adult and the doctors don't owe them anything. They can't make decisions anymore. You really need to be able to designate the person ahead of time, because if you can't, then it's too late at that point.
Yeah, for sure. Amina Bakari-Green is with us, folks. ABG Legal is the name of her firm. Amina, talk about I think we've covered some of this, but I want to be clear for our listeners. But talk about those clients that you see as being best fits for you.
So I do tend to get a lot of people coming either seeing their parents start to have that decline. And because estate planning really is for who you're leaving behind, because they're the ones that are going to have to carry on, keep things moving. It's the children that come and try to get their parents' estate in order before it's too late. And it's going to make it easier for them on the back end. A lot of times, like I said, we can streamline the process, understanding what your parents have, what they need. We can have all the paperwork done, and it's more of a just sign here. Is this what you want to do as the parent? Sign here. It's all taken care of.
Yeah, and just to underline the point, if you've waited until you have to end up in probate to get the plan put together, right, it's going to cost you more.
Yes.
It's better, by definition, you got to pay the court. It's better and pay you more because you've got a lot more work to do. It's just a whole lot better to do it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Have we said that enough?
Yeah. I'd rather you pay me a flat fee ahead of time to get your documents in place than to pay me hourly to walk you through the probate process.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Success stories. I'm sure you've got many, but I'd love it if you could take one and use it as an example of the great work you do.
So it's seen the similar outcomes of just getting involved with people, knowing the weight that they're carrying, either as an executor of an estate or as a legal guardian, as a conservator of a loved one. And they're being told by the court everything that's going to be required of them. And they didn't expect, and just being able to walk them through, okay, this is what's most important. This is what we need to take care of now. This is what they're really asking for. It's not as daunting as it sounds. And just physically seeing that sigh of relief from them of just, I'm so grateful. You know what you're doing and you're going to be able to handle this for me. I'm so grateful you're making this a lot easier. That's what motivates me. That's what keeps me passionate. And so that's what I see time and time again. Yeah,
wow. That's fantastic. Amina, this has been great. I can't imagine there aren't some folks that hearing what you've had to say, maybe they think I really need to get on the stick and is the person I need to call. So let's tell them how they can be in touch.
Yeah. So you can call me at ABG Legal. My number is 770-750-4905. I am a completely virtual practice, so I make house calls. I go to you, and the easiest way is also my email, Amina, AMINA, T as in Tom, Bakari, BAKARI @gmail.com. I'll get right back to you.
Amina Bakari-Green from ABG Legal. Amina, thanks so much for coming in. It's been fantastic.
This was great.
I'm delighted we could shine the light on your great work.
Yes, I love talking about this.
Yeah, that's obvious. Thank you. So thank you so much. Hey, folks, just a couple of quick things before we end the show for today. If you are looking for classic, authentic Italian food, and you're looking for a place that was farm to table before that was cool, there's, to me, only one Italian place in this whole region that fits that bill. Yes, it's Casa Nova Italian Restaurant. I say that because they've had a garden behind their restaurant for not all of their 25, 26 years in business, but pretty close. They've had it for a long time. And out in that garden, they grow tomatoes and corn and peppers and zucchini and herbs. And they bring all that, all those fresh ingredients inside and put them into those cooked order dishes, pasta and chicken and seafood. Do I have your attention now? All this wonderful food they have, and it's fantastic. And here's the kicker. They treat you like family when you're there. They really have a wonderful service mentality at Casa Nova Italian Restaurant. Located on Highway 9 just north of McFarland, CasaNovaRestaurant.com is the place to go. Learn more, make reservations, and find out about their great catering. They do great work there. Also, I have a book out. It's called The Generosity Mindset, A Journey to Business Success by Raising Your Confidence, Value, and Prices. If you're a solo or small professional services firm and you need help with your value, your positioning, your business development, your pricing, if those are issues for you, this book is for you. It's written for you. Go to thegenerositymindset.com to learn more about the book and to find out where to buy the book. Also, I want to thank you, our listeners. So this is a noteworthy show. It is show number 800 of North Fulton Business Radio. We're not going to strike up the band because this is it. We just keep going. But I want to thank you because you have helped us get to this point. We've been doing this show for about 8.5 years now, and we've only gotten this far because of you and your support. You continue to give us all sorts of support in so many ways, and we're grateful for that. And I want to thank you because you help us fulfill our mission to be the voice of business in the North Fulton region and beyond, and we're grateful for you. Thank you. So for my guest, Amina Bakari-Green, I'm John Ray. Join us next time here on North Fulton Business Radio.